right, here we have a case of Freaky Friday. Batman and Superman peeing into the same fountain or punching the same skull and swapping identities, right? So Batman and Superman have fought against each other. Oh Christ, don't we know it? They fought against each other. What if they became each other? Aside from a single tossed-off World's Finest story back in 1955, this has really only been explored in two modern stories, right? Superman Speeding Bullets from 1993 and Superman Batman 53 to 56. So, released in 1993, Speeding Bullets was written by Kmart DeMatris and drawn by the late, great Eduardo Barreto. The premise of this Elseworld book is very simple, right? Kal-El's rocket misses Smallville altogether and winds up under the purview of the Wayne family of Gotham. It brings up a potent question. Is there an essential Clark Kentness to Kal-El wherever he goes, or does he become a psychopathic Cape Crusader merely by growing up adjacent to a Batcave? Spoiler, he becomes a brutal vigilante. As all Elseworld stories go, there's one teeny what-if component added to the mix of the familiar, which in this case is Batman's well-worn origin. So the Wayne family claim the infant Kal-El as their own, and they raise him in the comfort of the cosseted Wayne Manor. Ultimately, go to see The Mask of Zorro, where they wind up fatefully gunned down by Joe Chill in Crime Alley. Only this time, after shooting Thomas and Martha Wayne, Chill turns the gun on young Kal-El Wayne, but the bullets bounce off of him. Thought you'd like that. In a cruel twist of fate, the young Kryptonian's heat vision kicks in and he gives Joe Chill a makeover akin to Mason Verger from Hannibal. So losing his parents made Bruce Wayne into a fucking psychopath in the reality we know, and it does the same to the young alien. It warps him. But he knows now that his power set could have saved the Waynes if only he realizes his titanic gift sooner. And then when he sees the guano pile in the cave downstairs, young Master Bruce has his criminals are a cowardly, superstitious lot moment.
What are you? I'm Batman.
So he turns his anger outward on the world, aloft on leathery Chiropteran wings. Because a Batman is fate. A Batman is an inevitable conclusion. Meanwhile, this reality's Lex Luthor, the well-known industrialist pie hole we all know, is trying to take over Wayne Industries, as one does when you're Lex Luthor. Also, he's referenced as having lived through an industrial explosion, blah, blah, blah. He's the fucking Joker, okay? There's no way that even an Elseworld story can vary from the template even just a little bit. But this reality's Lois Lane sees the cruel Superbat in action one night, and she remarks, I quote, "I understood that this man, if he was a man, was no hero. He was a dangerous, psychopathic animal." Which means no Niagara Falls trip for him and Margot Kidder in this reality.
Wow.
So, next, Luthor shows up unbidden at the Daily Planet and sheds his pink mask, right? A la Nicholson and the Gotham Flugelheim Museum, en route to kidnapping Lois to make her, I guess, a sex slave or something like that. Now, I don't show it here, right? But Luthor actually jumps out of a plate glass window with a helicopter blade on his back, like some sort of corpulent Harlequin Inspector Gadget. So he drops Luthor, Batman drops Luthor from a great height, right? But seeing the judging face of Lois Lane fills our Old Testament Bat God with enough remorse to catch the bad guy before he hits the ground. Sort of a la Nicholson in the 89 Batman too, right? It is worth noting how influential Burton's Batman was to the comic books back in the day, because they don't have the same transitive property now. So Lois Lane has scrubbed the damage, the sludge of years, to get Bruce Wayne to accept the mantle of being a humane hero. And my favorite line is this on-the-nose mission statement of the Elseworlds series, right? Scenario after scenario unreels in my mind, and I panic at the mere thought I might never have known him, that our troubled world might have been denied her greatest hero. There is only one series of events that could have given us the most 1990s design of anything ever since MC Hammer drank Zima while riding on Ross Perot's back. Next up is the Superman Batman series 56 to 58 from 2008. This was written by Michael Green and Mike Johnson, art by the stupendous Rags Morales. Now this is not out of canon like the last one, for those of you paying attention in the audience. Whereas Speeding Bullets was an Elseworlds fantasy reinvention, this story is almost Julia Schwartzian in its premise, right? Superman and Batman are pretty much shot with a ray that swaps their powers. So what we have here is a Metropolis Costume Society gala where your story's villain, Captain MacGuffin or whatever, shows up and screams about the brooch of Cawdor or whatever, like that's a thing. So your bad guy here is Silver Banshee. And that's important only because Superman's one weakness aside from kryptonite is magic, right? And Silver Banshee is that. She's not a great villain, but she's the only one we have here now. So Superman arrives forthwith because Clark Kent was covering this event for the Daily Planet, right? And then for some reason, Batman also shows up and starts yelling at Silver Banshee in Gaelic for some reason. So she uses a magic scream to subdue Batman. And she does the same to Big Blue, he says, I've never felt her hit so hard before. Now, after the hit, Superman offers to x-ray someone's broken leg. But it's been neutralized. If I were Kal-El, I wouldn't try to fly home.
Why don't you look me up?
Smooth move, Ferguson. Meanwhile, as Ted Baxter used to say, Batman is out breaking some femurs in Gotham with Robin when he notices he can now see through human tissues and walls. This should make it easier for him to avenge his parents on a nightly basis. Batman heads to the Fortress of Solitude and jacks up some training robots, trying to get a handle on his new skill set, right? So Clark Kent is depowered, which makes him useless, but a well-trained Bruce Wayne with alien abilities, absolutely unstoppable. So Batman prowls tirelessly. Tonight, I'm cleaning up the city once and for all. This might be the ideal time for Bruce to chill out just a little bit. On second thought, fuck Bane, right? Bane was everything wrong with the 90s. Put your fist through his perineum all you want. While you're at it, go find Azrael, do the same thing to him too. So Nightwing, who's Dick Grayson, the first Robin, don't you know, right? He tries to talk some sense into Batman about using moderation and humanity while exercising his new might. But that just gets him a brutal beating about the face, chest, neck, breast, and head area. So, while Batman is crushing his enemies, seeing them driven, and hearing the lamentation of their women, Clark Kent is coming to grips with being a mere mortal. Nostalgically, he still wears the costume under his reporter's togs, which is actually kind of romantic. Now this page is the high point in Rags Morales' art for me here, right? A nicely composed and epically scaled image of Batman stalking the Eiffel Tower, remarking, I should go back to Gotham, get some sleep, eat something. Then I remember, I don't have to. I feel a rush I've never felt. I can't stop now. This is the thesis of the story, which thus far has felt very Picayune. Batman only has his humanity to act as a check on his ambition, right? Scale him upwards, however, and you have a cruel god monster on your hands. In this respect, Dematris for the first story, and these authors agree on this about Batman's character, and so do I. So then Clark puts on a spare batsuit just to fully lean into the identity switch. And Batman is confronted on the moon by the 2008 edition of the Justice League, which features Red Tornado, Firestorm, John Stewart Green Lantern, Hal Jordan Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, and Hawk Girl, who's wearing an air supply. So, the battle is met, but there's no traction to be had against a fully powered Batman. That is, until he hears familiar voices from beyond the grave. What trickery be this? Now, this is what I mean in terms of repetitious leitmotifs, right? Here we have Crime Alley again. When in doubt, bored writers refer to dead parents when it comes to Batman. But this parental illusion is just chicanery from our favorite backward-speaking magician, Zatanna. She has the MacGuffin brooch, or whatever that thing was, that Silver MacGuffin, or whatever her name was, used to whack Batman and Superman. And faster than you can say, Sten has sniffed sneaky cots, the curse is reversed. Back to normal. Batman and Superman reunite and they touch base. Batman espouses that he's glad to have his humanity back. Psych! He totally wishes he could have the power of the force of nature, right? All of Superman's ability is brought to bear. He could tear his enemies into quarters every night. And not for nothing, but Superman confides in thought balloons that he wishes he also had the life of a mortal without the burden of superpowers. What have we learned? We've learned from this that we can synthesize. We have a man who wishes he were a Nietzschean Übermensch, and conversely, a Nietzschean Übermensch who wishes he were a man. Also, the comic reading I've done over the last 30 years tells me that your average comic book creator will always find a way to refer back to the Kryptonian capsule and the gunfire in Crime Alley as a substitution for new ideas. These heroes are bigger than their origins, but yet we can't seem to get away from stale characterization. So I guess as long as comic book fans continue to grow up and become authors themselves, the serpent will always eat its own tail. Thank you.